All right, now we're going to talk about project life cycle, starting up a project, managing relationships, closing out a project. It's all pretty damn important. I feel like people don't think it through. They're not all that strategic about it. So let's start with starting a project. What are the considerations that you guys think about, make before you even get into a project, mobilize equipment, start putting buckets in the ground?
Yeah. This is actually this is one that we probably have gotten better at, exponentially better at, maybe even just in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. So really have improved on this one. I think a lot of times, this is what I hear. Well, that plan's good enough. When we get out there, we'll figure it out, right? Well, there's just a lot that always changes. We'll figure it out then. The reality is, a lot of us in construction don't want to sit in a room and plan out a job for 2 days. It's not what we want to do. It's kind of boring. But we have really pushed planning out details hey, where are we going to be pushing with the dozer? Should we build a GPS model for all of these pushes so that we make sure the dozer's always pushing 300 feet or less, right? How are we going to install this filter material? So say you're doing an embankment, it has a filter section. How are we going to install this? Oh, we're going to use this piece of equipment. Okay, but the spec says this. So how are you going to do it? And really just walking through in detail and creating a work plan. I know early on, we saw work plans as an imposed necessity. The spec says we have to do this work plan, or the GC says we have to do this work plan. This is stupid, why are we doing it? But we're just gonna give a deliverable. And so, they were subpar at best. As we started to realize, that's really our opportunity to start the project out well. That's our opportunity to say, hey, here's our plan, here's our contingency, here's our another contingency. All of a sudden, projects are starting out better. And why is that important? I don't know if you've seen this, but if a job starts out wrong, what happens?
You're in trouble.
Yeah, the whole project.
Yeah.
You get in, if you're 2 or 3 weeks in and you just don't have your crap together, just shut it down. I mean, not really, but man, you have an uphill battle. Mm-hmm. The inspectors don't trust you. The GCs are these guys don't know what they're doing. Or the owner, man, they've already missed scheduled dates. Did we pick the wrong person? And all of a sudden, way more scrutiny. Way more. Whereas if you demonstrate from the beginning that you've planned out your work well, that there's sequence, if your guys know it, so an inspector comes up and says, hey, why are you doing it this way? Oh, we're doing it this way because we thought through the placement of filter and we realized if we did it this other way, there'd be contamination. All of a sudden, there's just so much more confidence. And so there's not the scrutiny. There's not that battle, right? Everybody knows in construction, there's a lot of this just battling. Mm-hmm. And I think a large amount of that is because we don't create a detailed plan and share it. So in different organizations, that looks different. Sometimes they don't create the plan, or sometimes the project manager creates a pretty killer plan, but it stops at him and doesn't make it anywhere else. And so it seems like nobody knows what they're doing. And in some cases, it's true. We were talking about I know this isn't civil, but the office, right? The office is under construction.
Yeah.
How many times do you show up there and you're do these guys even know what these guys are doing? Or do they, how come they're always taking a smoke break? Right? Yeah. They don't know the next step. Nobody's there helping them understand, hey, this is the next step. If you don't get done, this guy's right on top of you. We're actually working with somebody to really help us do some training on just that, schedules. They'll be a part of one of these tracks, so that's exciting.
Do you think it's important I know it's important for bigger contractors, but equally for smaller contractors,
Yeah.
say I just dig basements?
Yeah, most definitely.
Taking time to just plan it out effectively beforehand.
Yeah, so I made a mention to this CFMA, Construction Financial Management Association, I believe is what it stands for.
Yep.
I probably got that wrong.
No,
but,
that works.
They say 20 to 30% into a project, likely can't change the trajectory. So if you're digging a basement and you don't have a good plan, you're only a few, depending on how big it is, maybe half a day, maybe a day into it, and all of a sudden, you can't change the trajectory. So it matters. And not only that, but a lot of times if you're digging small basements, you're digging with homeowners. And if you lose a homeowner's trust and you're building their dream house, you better believe they're gonna be all over your case. Hey, I told you this tree was important to me, and your excavator counterweight has hit it 10 times and now I have no branches on the bottom. Go buy me a $20,000 tree, right? Whereas if you would have showed up and said, hey, this is our plan, I know this tree's important to you, so we put caution tape around it so our excavator won't get near it, and we're gonna start over right there by it, and we're gonna work our way out. So we can make sure that we're just never in a position that we're putting it in harm's way. They're probably not even gonna show up. They're gonna show back up and be like, you're already done, versus they're micromanaging because they lost your trust. So I think the pre-planning is vital to have trust with the ownership of that project, whether that's a municipality or government agency or a GC or a homeowner. Like having a plan and then communicating that plan creates trust. And when you have trust, things go a lot better.
Yeah, when you see communicating the plan, you mean everybody's involved in that plan, from management on down to the most basic field tasks. Everybody's involved.
Yeah. We always say, like, does everybody need to know the entire the entire process from the get-go? No. The closer you are to the installation of the work, maybe the less look ahead you need. Like you need to be worrying about the next 3 to 10 days, right? Like what am I doing today, and where are we going to be the next 3 to 10 days? But maybe when you get to that's people installing the work foremans, superintendents, they need to be thinking a little bit further ahead, and project engineers, PMs a little bit further ahead, executives a little bit further ahead. So when you're planning out potentially a large project, does every laborer need to know what paving mix design you're going to use? No, they don't need to. But at some point they do. Because guess who's probably taking the ticket? Every job I've ever seen, it's very rare that the superintendent's gathering the tickets.
Yeah.
It's usually a laborer. Does he know what mix is supposed to be there? Or do you lay a whole day of the wrong mix? It happens.
It has happened.
Yeah. And maybe you laid, luckily, the right size mix in that, you laid depends on what state you're in, but whether it's a metric mix or not, like maybe you laid a 19 millimeter or a 3/4 mix, but your oil content was off by 5%. So the pay, or 0.5%. So the pay deduction could be so big that you're losing money, or it could have to be ripped out, all because you didn't let the guy know who's gonna grab the tickets. Hey, could you just check, make sure it matches this?
Yeah.
So yeah, let everyone on the team know, but even let those you're working for, like, hey, this is our plan. And kind of maybe the same thing there. Maybe you submit your entire plan for the project to their project management team, but maybe your superintendent is reviewing bi-weekly, hey, this is what the next 2 weeks is gonna look like, just so everyone knows.
Awesome. Now that's getting the project started right, and you talked about it, talking to the customer, working with the client, working with others. Construction's a team sport.
It is.
And so sure, you're working with your crew, but especially you guys are oftentimes a subcontractor. There's a lot of other people involved in every single project.
Yeah.
What are the keys in that actually executing the project, part of the life cycle? What are the keys to communicate clearly with everybody around you, the owner, other subcontractors, inspectors, whomever it may be?
Yeah. I think communicating, first of all, is key.
Simple.
Like in that, like, it's so often, we even have that term in construction, the honeymoon phase, like the project's getting started early on. We don't want to talk about problems, right? We're like, well, I don't want to come after them right now because this issue, so you don't talk about it, and it costs you money. And then when an issue comes up that you probably shouldn't really, like it's kind of one of those ones like, not sure, but you have to because you didn't talk to them about the other one and it cost you money. All of a sudden now you're like, well, this is an issue. And they're like, well, it's kind of gray. The contract's not really clear on that. Yeah, but I ate that other issue. Like, what other issue? Well, that one, I took care of it. And then they're like, I had no idea what we're talking about. And so you kind of lose credibility. Whereas what we do, and you have to do it the right way, but we just kind of have a conversation with the client. Hey, look, we're here. We're committed to the project. We know if you're successful, we're successful. If something comes up that we think isn't in the contract, might be an owner change order, wasn't clear, we're going to communicate that. We're going to say, hey, we believe this is different. And I think it's important to say believe because it disarms. You don't want to say like, here you go, here's your change order, you're wrong. Right away they're like, they've already folded their arms, they're like, oh really, I'm wrong? Prove it.
Yeah.
Prove it. Whereas if you come at them like, hey, I think this might be different. And this is why. And if it is, this is what the cost could be. Most of the time with GCs and with owners, we find that they're like, okay, let's dig into that. And we work together to figure out, is it an issue? And primarily they're fair with us. There's always exceptions, but primarily they're fair with us. So I'd say throughout the entire project, be transparent. Like nobody wins if you wait to bring up all the issues to the end.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't help them. Half the time, whether it's an owner project or a GC project, at the financing level, the owner level, there's some money for contingency. There's money for some of this stuff. So if you're just honest and transparent and are sharing openly, hey, I think this is different than the plans and the specification or than the contract, and this is why, there's likely the ability to pay it. Now, are they gonna right away be like, oh yeah, that no problem? No, you're gonna have to be some proving, but don't let it get personal. Yeah. Nobody wins in construction when those arguments get personal. Like, that guy's an idiot. Well, if you feel that way, take a step back because you're going down the path of personal and it's not going to work out. Just recognize he is accountable for not spending that money unless it's needed to, or she, and help them understand why it's needed, why it's changed. Don't let it be about that person doesn't want to be helpful. You be so good at helping them see your side of it that it doesn't become this battle.
And in that entire process, you're building trust that's going to carry for a long, long time.
Yeah.
If you're honest, you work through those challenges, you're going to work with that. A lot of your customers are probably repeat customers.
Yeah.
And you're building that trust to carry over to other projects potentially many years down the road. Yeah,
like one customer, I think we did our first project with that customer in 2007. So 13, coming on 14 years, and taking us all over the country. Have we had issue projects? We have. But you know what? Every one of those executives know we'll be fair, we'll sit down, we'll come up with a compromise, and we're gonna give it our all, right? Sometimes is our all not enough? Yeah, there's been times where it hasn't been enough. Maybe we hadn't trained the personnel right, we thought they were ready for something, and they went out there and they didn't do what we thought they should have done and what they thought they should have done. But since we're honest and we're having those conversations, they say, you know what? Yeah, we had a bad project together. That probably happens once every 3 years. But we do, in that same time period, 15 good projects. So they get it because it happens to them too. No owner or no GC has all A teams that are doing it all right every time. So they get the human nature part of it.
That's communicating externally throughout the project. How important, and we've touched on this a little bit, I just want to continue to touch on it though because it's extremely important. How important is communicating internally, sharing information within the business throughout a project?
Yeah. This is somewhere we can get better.
Yeah.
We do a pretty good job of communicating to a certain level. but always getting that information down really well. We're not the best at it. You know, when you're working overtime and you're the guy who's out on a job working, it's just really nice to know you're winning. So sometimes the communication that I see that doesn't happen is, how are we doing financially? How are we doing on schedule? And they don't know. Usually the only time they know is when crap's not going well.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's nice when you show up to work and they're like, hey guys, we're killing it. That doesn't mean let it up. Let's keep after it. Like, we keep after it, we're gonna knock this one on the park. That's a fun environment to work in. And I think you can appreciate this. You helped lay pipe, but there's this camaraderie when things are going. It's so fun.
Oh, yeah.
People are yelling, razzing each other, like just having a good time. That's what makes construction special. I mean, that only happens when people are communicating.
Mm-hmm.
We could do better at that at times, but in regards to like communicating the plan itself, we have told, and this comes kind of from extreme ownership. We went to the muster and they talked about, you know, having like that foreman level guy really take ownership of his plan and to talk through it. And so we've told our guys, take 15, 20 minutes at the start of the day. Do all of your safety meetings, talk about all the hazards associated with your work. But to do that well, like, you need to run through, hey, what's our plan? And not only what's our plan, but what's the contingencies? All right, so today we plan on starting over here. We're gonna be hauling out with trucks. If for some reason trucks don't show up on time, what should we do? Like, we know they haven't showed up on time 3 days already this week, so if we have an extra hour, where else could we go and be productive? All right, great. You know, that level of detail. And I feel like most often it's like, hey, today we're gonna be moving dirt. You're still gonna be over there. You're still gonna be over there. All right, break, let's go. And it's like, man, we spent all this time coming up with a plan, and then here we are every day not discussing the plan or refining the plan or sharing the plan.
I see that's probably a common theme, is the highest performing contractors I've been around have the longest meetings in the morning.
But most would tell you, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
I can't spend 30 minutes. I'm gonna lose so much money doing that.
Yeah, I've been to some that are, you know, they can be like 45 minutes long with 50 people.
Yeah.
Going through all different sorts of hazards, all different sorts of contingencies, exactly what's going on today, who's doing what.
Yeah.
And those companies every single time outperform everybody else.
That's awesome.
And then I see those other companies that are, all right, guys, let's go to work. They go to work.
Yeah.
They're not the top performers.
Well, and they're also the superintendents or project managers or foremen who are so frustrated usually. Like, my guys just can't get anything done.
Yeah.
They always need me. Yeah, because you didn't tell them what the plan was.
Yeah.
And they're not mind readers. Or you told them what the plan was in a very broad way. Hey, we're gonna move dirt from there to there. All right, well, that's what they went to do in the way that they knew how to do it, but if you wanted it different, you should have told them.
That's a great point.
So.
Now that's throughout the project.
Yeah, and you have to stay disciplined.
Yeah.
And even, hey, if we didn't plan for a contingency, don't be afraid to say, hey guys, just time out. Let's gather up, take a 15-minute break. Things have changed. There's new safety hazards, and I think we could do this better. Like, hey, we've been hauling this way, and I think we have this, like, we could probably punch a road in right here, and if we did, does everyone agree we could cut some time off our cycle? And there's a very good chance you could.
And that could be midday.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait till every morning or
No.
every week. You
No.
can do it right then and there if something's better.
Yeah, that's why radios are important.
Mm-hmm.
And at times we haven't invested in the right radios because it costs a lot of money.
Radios too, from a culture building standpoint and teamwork standpoint, are essential. And I always get frustrated when companies, they cheap out on radios, or they have very strict radio policies.
Yeah.
That you can only say certain things on the radio.
No joking.
No joking, no chit chat, nothing.
Yeah.
And again, it's some of the best performing operations I've been to have the funniest radio chatter I mean, it's like a comedy club on these damn radios. And that's because they're building that camaraderie and they're communicating. So when an issue does come up, when a better way to do something does come up, they're already used to talking because they talk all day long. They're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it in one of the other segments, but, set some guardrails.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want people being, inappropriate or unkind, but, like, come on, you should be able to joke a little bit.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
If you're running a drag line all day, you need a little bit of comic relief.
Yeah. There was plenty last week, yeah. Now, you've done all that. You've done a good job throughout, setting up the job, communicating during the job. You're getting to the end of a job.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a tough job. Maybe you have been slogging, or maybe you've just been there forever.
Yeah.
Man, we've been here for 4 years.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get off this job. How do you bring that thing to a close in a productive way in which everybody wins? You win as the contractor and your customer wins.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this last night.
Mm-hmm.
This is one I think is huge. And so I want to start off by just saying, in my opinion, the last 2 months of a project is what people remember. Like, really, if you make the last 2 months miserable, they will not remember. It doesn't matter how long. They will not remember all the good. In their minds, what will be there is, man, that was hell. Mm-hmm. Even though the project overall could have been successful.
Yeah.
So, one, take that into consideration. So, example, we were in Tucson, Arizona. We had done a project, had been successful. We brought a sub in to do some work for us, and they just didn't do a good job. And we met with their team. We met with our team. Contractually, probably could have forced it. Probably could have. But I walked in and I told the PM who was on charge, I was like, look, it's gonna cost us 20 grand. I don't wanna spend 20 grand. But we just did a $2.5 million job with these guys. We were profitable. Do we really wanna ruin all of that over 20 grand? Mm-hmm. Like, this is a repeat customer who does a lot of work for us. I think the right thing is just to spend the 20 grand, let's get it done right. And we did. And you know what? The PM was like, came to fight, because he thought he was gonna fight with us. We walked in and I was like, you know what? I think the right thing to do is to just spend the 20 grand. And he just instantly, he was like, just so satisfied that he didn't have to fight today. Yeah. And because of that, he has always been a great reference, right? Like, worth way more than the 20 grand. Mm-hmm. We've submitted on proposals, and I know, hey, we can call him up and say, hey, will you be a reference? Without a doubt, he'll be a reference. And so, don't jeopardize a good project at the end because you're trying to save a few dimes, or even just a normal project. Like, really take into consideration the fact that what happens at the end often is what's most remembered. And then also, you just need to remind your team, and probably even have just some talks sometimes. A 4-year project, like we've done 2.5, 3 year long projects, it's taxing. Yeah. And sometimes your team's doing a good job, but the QC guy or whatever, like, is just kind of likes to fight. Mm-hmm. Like, that happens. There's those people out there that just like to fight. Yeah. And so, don't be afraid to incentivize the guys and girls out there. Like, hey, let's just stick with this. At the end, we'll have a barbecue. I know this guy's being tough. Smile. Just do what he asks. There's no reason for us to argue. In the big scheme of things, it's not going to cost us much money. This is all over. Let's get together. We'll have a job site barbecue and celebrate closing this one out good. And then one that happens even in our organization is leaving before you're done, right? Like, we need you at this job. So what you do is you have 2 or 3 days left to get done, or maybe it's a week because it's a big project, but you need those people somewhere else. And so you get done enough, and then you jet. Mm-hmm. Man, the amount of money you're gonna spend coming back to fix this stuff, piecemeal, it's not worth it. Not worth it. I've seen it so many times. I can tell you it's not worth it. Just get it done right the first time. Even if you have to go to that other client and say, look, I'm going to be 2 days late. But if I come right now, well, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to leave 3 guys over on this other job, and you're going to get 3 guys. You're not going to be happy because I'm not going to do a good job for you, and they're not going to be happy because I'm not going to do a good job for them. So let me finish up there, and if we need to work a few extra days, if we need to work a Saturday or 2 to catch you up, we will. We'll do whatever we need to do to catch your job up, but let us finish up over there because both of you will be happier if we do it. Most guys really can relate to that. You know, most superintendents can relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to make a note that you're coming at it from your perspective, and not all of your work is just hard bid.
Correct.
But this matters too. If I just do DOT work, for example, the first thing I might be thinking is, well, this doesn't really matter for me because I'm still going to get work if the numbers are good, but
You will.
that's not always the case. If you're pissing everybody off at that agency in the process, they're going to be twice as hard on you as the next time around. The inspectors aren't going to be helping you out. No one's going to be helping you out. It's demoralizing your people. It still hurts you.
Yeah, and likely if you're having that much confrontation with your inspectors, you're having a lot of confrontation with your subcontractors.
Oh yeah.
And so if that's the case, is it getting harder to get subcontractor numbers? I'll be honest, there's people that they get a 15, 20, 25% ad, right? I don't want to work for them because I know it's going to be a pain in my rear. So, hey, here's the number for the guy who I don't want to work for. And if that gets common enough, all of a sudden you lose competitive edge. So treating your subs wrong also has an effect on your ability to be competitive. But I agree, like this industry is really small. If you are working in a municipality or a DOT department and you think that that's the only time you're going to be with that inspector or that owner's rep, you are mistaken.
Oh yeah.
And if you try and stick it to them and do so punitively, like just really try to get after them, there's a good chance they're going to return the favor.
So I guess to cover what we just talked about,
Yeah.
on the front end, really important to plan
Yep.
and communicate the plan.
Yep.
In the actual execution phase, really important to communicate, be honest, communicate with the people at your company, communicate with the owner, communicate with everyone you're involved with.
Yeah.
And towards the back end, finish it out, finish strong. Remember that there are long-term consequences for short-term thinking.
Yeah.
And those last few months are what people really remember.
Yeah, I mean, and the long-term consequences, just going back to that, like you just don't have a full understanding of what they'll be.
Yeah.
Like that could be the guy or girl who ends up at another agency or a general contractor. Or it could be the one that you have an interview with somebody and you're like, this guy or this girl is a rock star and we want them in our company. They're like, I'm gonna check with my friend who's an inspector. And he says, man, I've never worked for them, but when they worked for us, they were a nightmare. And all of a sudden you might lose out on what you think is a rock star candidate. So yeah, you just don't know. And I think overall, the thing is being a good person, I think people think, hey, this guy's soft-spoken, he's talking about trying to be a good person, he probably gets run over all the time. No, not at all. Because most people, that's what they want to deal with. I know how to stand up to the bullies. I know how to do that. But really, if you treat people fair and good, the bullies there's just so few of them. Like there really aren't that many. Construction has tough people, but if you just tell them what you're gonna do and you don't position and jockey for all this stuff, you'll find out most of the people in construction are good people, right? Like they're not there to put you out of business.
Yeah.
They're there to do their job, and if they can see that you are trying to do your job and communicate it and not take advantage of them, then for the most part things go well. We work for some general contractors, and there's some tough people, and it's not fun, but they're few and far between.
Yeah. No, I think everybody, like you said, no one shows up to work thinking, I'm going to do a bad job today. Everyone wants to win, even if they are difficult. If you can meet them where they are, I think you'll be surprised, especially in this industry. There's a lot of good folks.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Well, I think that's everything with managing a project from start to finish, communicating effectively, putting a plan together on the front end, and closing it out on the back end.